All right, everybody, welcome to the Culture and People Cast. Today's guest is Jennifer. In a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
So in a few sentences, officially, I am the Director of HR for Foreo North America. And if you're not familiar, Foreo is a Swedish beauty tech company. And in my role, I am responsible for organizational effectiveness, talent management, and organization culture. Unofficially, I would describe myself as a complete HR geek. I just love all things people, all things HR. And I think I would say I'm seriously crazy about organizational development and just seeing how everything connects and comes together. And so for me, I really thrive on seeing people evolve and grow and find and discover their passions and basically move from point A to point B. So that's me. And I'm so thrilled to be here with you today.
Oh, that's so great. Jennifer and I had a few minutes to chat ahead of time, and we were talking about staying abreast on all the changes and what an info, absorber we can be in these times. But it's good that you enjoy that aspect of it because it's really important right now where things are changing so often.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Jennifer, I think that's probably your favorite part of influencing people and culture, but curious, just your thoughts. I'm hearing from other leaders, engaging employees is a challenge. What are your thoughts on that?
I would absolutely agree that it is a challenge. I mean, COVID aside, and that is a big aside right now, but that is the huge challenge that we're talking about. But aside from that, I think what I'm seeing is all of the difference in the different workforce generations that we have at play today. So, business leaders and HR, they're going to have to really, I think, retrain and educate themselves on how to stay in the game and stay competitive, essentially, because, long gone are the true and tested methods for increasing engagement. You have to be able to tackle millennials, for example, who crave, instant gratification and advancement with your Gen Z coming into the workforce. Plus, you still have some of those other generations in the workforce, and finding a happy balance to keep them all, engaged in something that's meaningful and valuable to them. So for me, that is one of the biggest challenges that I see right now.
Yeah, agreed. And I don't want people to, in the midst of COVID, forget that we actually are losing that more tenured generation is already into retirement. And so don't forget, we've got that brain drain going on where we've got to get any of that knowledge that we can from them, any of those relationships that we can, even if they've got 6 months left, please don't leave them ignored and undervalued. They've given a lot to the organization no matter how long they've been here, and they still have more to give.
Absolutely. I mean, it's bittersweet because that is essential to moving forward. And, again, with the new generations coming in, I just see that becoming a big part of that challenge because, for example, the millennials, they want to transition, let's just say every 6 months. You can't harness all of that knowledge sharing that quickly. It's very difficult. And then you've got, Gen Z who you're going to have a whole set of challenges with them coming in where, maybe their social skills and their critical thinking skills aren't quite to the level that they need to be. They're used to being behind a tech screen somewhere, online on their phones. Gamification, for example, is a way that you can speak to them. So, it's going to be, HR and business leaders are going to have to get really creative in figuring that out.
Right. Yeah. And I think employees too, right? Because we can't count on the ecosystem to cater to all of the hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of employees that work at that organization. So there's a lot of personal ownership. But tactically speaking, for you, what advice do you have for the organization who does want to advance their culture or their people operations forward?
So I would say, for me, let me preface this with, I think advancing people strategy and culture, it really does start at the top. And I'm sure you've heard this all the time. But HR alone, and I'm HR, so HR alone is not responsible for driving culture. I would say I am responsible for driving people's strategy. But I'm going to give you a long-winded answer here because I really think this is an important question. But culture, in my opinion, fuels engagement. And I think it's so crucial for individuals to approach every single thing they do through the lens of how it's going to affect people and how it's going to affect their culture. You know, culture, my definition is it's all the juicy goosey of the organization, right? So it's contagious. If your culture is infected, everyone feels it. If your culture is thriving, you eat your competition for dinner. I mean, that's just the reality of the matter. But you need that executive level buy-in to really set the tone, to direct the mission, to live the values that are important to the business. And it's all of the unwritten behaviors that go into that. And then once you have that sort of flows and trickles through the rest of the people. And so beyond that support, I think it's really important for HR to get the frontline supervisor buy-in, because they're going to be your champions that help you, build and align your people strategy to the business strategy. Without them, employees look to their direct supervisors. That's a known fact. So you have to have them as your champion. Every role in the company should understand the key business drivers as well. I think if they don't know why their job is important, even if it's, the office assistant that orders the office supplies, that is an essential function. You can't have people doing their jobs if they don't have the resources that they need. So, that is important, that every role understands how they add value to the business. And then lastly, I think it's really important for people to survey the people, talk to them personally. You don't have to just push out a survey, but go and talk to them, get to know your teams and ask what matters to them. And once you ask, you have to be prepared to act on that. You can't just take that information and put it in the closet. So, everything, in my opinion, reverts back to people. People drive your strategy and people drive business results. And I don't care who you ask, you need to invest in your people and the things that, if your people and your business are important to you. So I'll leave you with some actionable items here in terms of how to sum that up. You need to understand your business. You need to understand how your business makes money, who your business's biggest competitors and customers are, what their biggest costs are, what factors influence that, what skill sets you need that are critical to that success. And so I think you then can shape your people strategy based on that information.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's so much to what you said. You got some great tips there in terms of knowing the business. And I will say that is one of those things that is under the obligation of the organization and the ecosystem to ensure that they have enough access to information, that there's enough sponsoring and mentoring going on within the organization. But one of the points you also had was around those frontline managers, those middle managers. Just do it a sheer numbers game. There's so many more of them than there are those senior leaders, right? Mm-hmm. So get after the ones that are going to have the most impact. And so often that group is not nurtured enough. So I appreciate the shout out for that group for sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what other leaders like yourself would you want to acknowledge as a great leader, or maybe even as a potential guest on the show?
I would recognize Jennifer Martinez. She was recently here in Las Vegas and has since transitioned onto Florida. But Jennifer has done some amazing things in the short period of time that she's transitioned out of corporate. She recently started her own HR consulting business. She's been partnering with a lot of really amazing organizations that support children and other individuals within the community. And she's just really taken off. And I just think, she's got a huge heart for people and culture as well. And I would highly recommend that you speak with her.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you for the connection with Jennifer. And in 20 seconds or less, is there one top resource that you would recommend for people in terms of people and culture advancement?
I will just share, for me, it's LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my jam. Early in my career, that's where I, sought some informal mentorships. I connected with people outside of my industry, outside of my profession. I, harnessed all of the wonderful information and content that I could. And so, through LinkedIn, I've had some amazing opportunities to network, to listen to podcasts, to connect even with you here. So LinkedIn is my number one by far.
Agreed. Get into it and get active, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for all you're doing for people and culture. And to all of our listeners, peace and progress.
All right. Thank you so much.